Welcome to Resource Thursday with Cloud Unify. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. This is the place to learn how to run your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. We have none other than Rick Smith over at Renactus Technology. Rick, how are you today? Oh, you're on mute, Rick. You're on mute, Rick.
Long morning. Well, unless you can read lips, I'll just say it again. I'm doing good, Paco. I really can't complain. I'm just ready to get in it today. How you doing?
I can't complain. As I usually say, better than good, better than most. And I am super excited to have our guest today. We have none other than Dave Horsey, owner of Cloud Unify. Dave, how are you today?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you for asking.
Very good, very good. But before we go into your services, which is has been requested by our community for quite a bit, so I really appreciate you taking the time to come out. I'd like to talk about my favorite thing, and that's TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged is September 16th to the 18th at the Hilton Rosemont Chicago O'Hare. There you will learn from other like-minded business owners in panels, breakout sessions. You'll have key takeaway from partners and vendors in the space, and you will experience one-to-one hallway conversations where we've been told that's where the magic happens. Tickets are $299, and you can get yours over at techconunplugged.com. Rick, you got anything else to say on TechCon Unplugged?
I'm looking
You
forward
ready to come to Chicago?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm excited. Looking forward to it. And every day as we make progress on it, I get more and more pumped. So bring it on.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, Dave, again, really appreciate you coming out here. For those that may not know who you are or what your business or service, your business can bring to them, why don't you talk a little bit about your intro or maybe a kind of your origin story of how you came to the space and then how you formed Cloud Unify?
Yeah, I've been maybe this might date myself, but I've been in the IT industry for about 25 years now. Um, Started as a bit of a hobby thing, getting the computers in university, and then actually took economics in university, and then but enjoyed working with computers a lot more. So I kind of got my foot in the door 25 years ago, and then have never kind of looked back since. Um, uh, yeah, worked with quite a few companies since then, and I kind of got exposed to Ubiquity, the Unifi line, probably about 10 years ago, and just started off helping people. It was kind of a technology that it was fantastic products, but sometimes the software we could have some issues with it. So yeah, just started off helping people, and then had a few requests of people that said, "Hey, can you just host this for me?" So started off doing that for a handful of people, and then decided to take the jump and just provide it more as a service, and been doing that for probably close to 9 years now.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, Cloud Unify, since I know nothing about Ubiquity because I'm not a Ubiquity guy, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to Rick because I'm sure that is a very popular line that is used by our community and a lot of IT service providers. But I wouldn't know what to ask you outside of how does your services save you time, money, and improve services. But I'm sure that with you on, we want to make the most out of these next 20 or so, 26 minutes. So I'll let Rick dive into the real nitty gritty of what people might be wanting to know.
Well, yeah. Again, welcome, Dave. I am a big cloud, a big Unify user. So this, and I've seen the challenges as time has gone on with managing, controlling the controller. So I think that the best thing to do is basically give us a brief overview of what you guys do and how that does help the community.
Yeah, the simple thing that we do is we host the Unified Network Controller software. That is basically the software that manages all the Unified devices. So if you can, and the good thing about the controller software is you can manage multiple sites, multiple devices. Um, And yeah, we do that in we call it the cloud. So we do it outside of their local network, which is a little bit different than some of the devices that people may have come across. They may like them, they may hate them, but the cloud key or the Dream Machine, and then some people may have even used Ubiquiti did do the controller hosting for a brief period of time, but they had exited that business as well.
Yeah, and I know one of the challenges of Ubiquiti makes it easy, in my opinion, to control, to have a controller that's open. You're not necessarily locked in, as I know some of the other companies have done it. There's no cost to it really to have a controller to control it yourself. But I know there are a lot of challenges with doing it on your own. As an MSP, I have gone the route of hosting my controller myself, but I've run into, a ton of not a ton, but I've run into some significant issues. And a lot of it comes back to trying to do too many things and management of it. Now, you guys, for us, you do that, and just give us a brief. What do you like? How do you do that, or what is the headache you alleviate from us?
Yeah, the headache is as you said, it is free software, and you can host it yourself. You can host it on a laptop. You can host it on Windows, Linux. But some of the headaches come into it. It may run fine the first time you install it. You'll set it up, and then you kind of maybe leave it for a bit. You neglect it. You have other things that occupy your time. Maybe you run out of disk space. Maybe the database has some challenges. You might need to do a restore. You might need to do something to fix the database. Or you might have installed a software update that just didn't work out so well. What we do is we have a lot of optimizations and scripts that we run against the controllers just to make sure things run as smoothly as possible. We also make sure that we don't roll out what are termed to be stable releases right away. We like to test those things out, usually for 2 to 4 weeks before we would roll those out to customer accounts. We do have some customers like to be on the bleeding edge, but most people prefer to have the reliability and the performance and the stability as much as possible, because they're using it to manage a lot of their customers' networks, and if they need to help out a customer or make changes on their network or add things, the last thing they want to be dealing with is something wrong with their controller that's preventing them from doing that.
Now, do they get that choice whether they want to do bleeding edge or kind of a testing phase with you, or is it kind of depending on what you look at for the firmware model? You'll say, I think we're going to probably hold you off for a while because we're hearing some things in the wild.
Yeah, like the firmware, I should specify, is something that our customers manage themselves. So they decide when they want to roll out firmware updates to their devices. But the software, the Unifi controller software that we run on our servers is something that we manage the updates for. We do allow them some flexibility if they want to hold back to a certain version, because with any software updates, they fix things. Sometimes they break things, and if that's something that is affecting their networks or their some of their customer sites, then that's something that they'd either want to hold back on. But some updates we do need to push out quite quickly. We did have the Log4j vulnerability that the Unifi controller software was exposed to. That was earlier this year, and that was one where we had to roll out the update quite quickly. Ubiquiti, credit to them, they came out with a patched version of that rather quickly, and then a subsequent patch to the patch because there was some issues with the Apache patch to that vulnerability. So that is the one exception where we will roll out any security updates quite quickly once we've done a very quick test on those releases.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge benefit for us because particularly with the log4, there were so many things we were working on at the same time, trying to patch, trying to fix. Having some things controlled somewhere else is a big help. So you don't have this one less check mark you have to follow. And I've been saying this a lot. It's been my challenge. The firmware I haven't had too many issues with, but sometimes pulling the trigger too quick on the controller software can really screw you up. And as an MSP, one of the things, we have so many things on the list, so you try to get to it, but this is one of those things where you say, okay, they got a new update, it's supposed to be good, it should help this, you drop it on, and then you're screwed, and then you got to go back. So you've ended up basically doubling it or tripling your work time. So something like what you guys offer is really a way, I'm speaking for myself, to take some things off our plate, knowing it's secure, knowing that then you're taking the time to test it, verify that it's going to work right, do what it's supposed to do, and not have any hidden rocks behind the curtain that's going to drop on us if something's not exactly right. So I think that's very important. And I do like the idea that, even though I'm not a bleeding edge technology guy, I do like the idea that, if I'm really pushing, you'll let me go ahead and go ahead and try it, which I don't necessarily think is a good idea. I'd rather have you guys test it out first and then let's go with it. But I appreciate the flexibility that it offers.
Yeah, and it's always good. You always want to make in IT. You always want to make sure. Hey, if I push that button, can I get back to where I was originally? You don't want to go and do things and go, oh, let's see what happens. I don't know how I'm getting back if I do that update. So we do take daily backups of all the controllers. And we also store those offsite encrypted. We also store offsite encrypted the auto backups if customers set that up. So we do have kind of two levels of backups that we take off the controllers. So then if you do try out a new version, things just aren't working out, we can roll back, but the one thing about Ubiquiti's controller software, Unifi controller software, is they don't allow downgrades. So that's where we would do a restore, but it would have to. It wouldn't just be a simple rollback. It would involve backup software and doing a restore with that.
Right, and therein lies the time issue for us as MSPs, having now to take our focus from other things to go ahead and have to roll a controller back. Well, not roll it back, but reinstall a controller, then pull it back up, and then test that again. And then, so, that definitely takes a lot off of our plate. And I know you mentioned before we started here about not allowing the SSH. And you want to explain why that's important, or why you guys feel that that's important?
Yeah, we take security fairly seriously. We want to primarily reduce the attack surface that any attacker would be trying to take advantage of. SSH is one of those areas. So we basically block that at a firewall level and whitelist just our private network IPs and access that through VPN. We do the hardening of the OS. On request, we can also do white labeling of IPs on the firewall level. So if they want to, some of our customers really want to lock down, we only want access from these networks, these public IPs, and then everything else should be blocked. So we do some of those enhancements as well for some of our customers. But yeah, really it's it comes down to everything you enable, everything you expose needs to provide value. If it doesn't provide value, then you want to close that off. You don't want to expose yourself any more to the public internet than you need to.
All right. I know we just like, again, for us, for people who do self-host, it's that control. So it's like when things get taken away or you can't do certain things, it's like, why am I being restricted? But it makes good sense. And I just thought it was important that people understand, why that rule why you guys have that in place, and that it is for, for our benefit, to protect us basically. And sometimes you protect us from ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, Paco, I know you
Well, I got one question going in for Dave. So obviously you've mentioned that there's a lot of things that you test, and you make sure that you kind of make sure that as far as what's going on in the wild, things of that nature. I imagine you also have a business continuity plan in case something were to go terribly wrong as far as restores, or maybe even just looking at a Unifi controller install that a client that looks to join you, and you can probably look to do some optimizations and improvements. Can you talk a little bit more about how, like how Rick said, the control, right? That everyone's kind of worried about outsourcing it. Speaking on those two aspects, how do you help with your continuity for your clients? And then also, how do you help those that want to become a client?
Yeah. Great question. We take advantage of multiple data centers in both North America and Europe. And by storing the backups of the controllers in offsite locations and then having those replicate, gives us the flexibility to then restore quite easily to a new location. We have had data centers go dark. Diggers tend to cut fiber optic cables quite often, so that can happen. So as long as we highly recommend all our customers to always use the domain name. We do allow custom domain names, so if a customer wants to use their own domain name, it's just a CNAME record to our hosted controller domain name. But that allows a lot of flexibility in recovery. Recoveries can be done rather quickly, usually in less than 15 minutes. We can spin up an instance. We do take advantage of a lot of automation to both for creation and management of our controller instances. So as long as you're not using the public IP, then restores can be done quite effectively and efficiently. And then sorry, what was the second half of your question? It was
No problem. Yeah, I know it was completely different.
Yeah.
Whereas if there is a prospect that wants to maybe become a client, is there a way that you can kind of look and tell them, yeah, you know what, there's some ways that we can optimize your setup, or has there been times where you've seen that and then have the ability to assist them in that realm as they kind of jump on board?
Yeah, like we've had customers that have come from horror stories, or sometimes they've just if they bought a Cloud Key or a Dream Machine and they're just hosting too many devices and everything's slow, nothing's working. Sometimes, worst case, they've had complete failures. As long as they have at least a backup file, then we can start to help them out. In some unfortunate cases, people have their controllers gone, they have no backups, but everything is running. In those cases, that's kind of the worst case scenario, where you'd have to start up a new hosted controller for them, and then just say, hey, one by one, just
Go back.
recreate their network and just start reconnecting things, and just plug away at it when you can. Hopefully you don't have hundreds of devices or thousands of devices, but and we do have we have a help document area that helps people whether they want to do a backup and restore migration, or do it individual sites, site export import into the hosted controllers. There's a lot of good features. We try to keep it up to date. The Unifi interface is constantly changing. They've had Rick, as you probably know, they've been trying to introduce this new UI versus the I think they changed the name to Legacy versus I think it was called Classic user interface. But it is one. The new UI isn't quite feature complete yet, so there is some moving back and forth. So we try to handle that in our help documentation and keep that up to date, to help customers just with some of the most common tests, and with migrations to our services.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned obviously that you have data centers in multiple parts of the country and out of country as well. Where does your reach go as far as, do you service only the US? Do you service out of country as well for clients? What is your service area for those that would like to be a client?
Yeah, we service internationally. Every I think just at every continent we have a customer, so we don't have any geographic restrictions
Gotcha.
on our customer base.
Very cool. And then the last but final thing that everyone would like to know is, are there any commitments? What is the pricing if you do advertise that? And are there any minimums?
Yeah, we do. We start off at a very affordable level at $15 a month. Should handle up to 100 devices. There's no is nothing that's taken away as far as multi-site or anything like that. You can enhance the guest portal or things like that. If since we don't offer SSH access, you can just send us updated files. If you do some of the more customizations of guest portal access or vouchers or things like that, and then kind of grow with you all the way up to custom plans that can handle thousands and thousands of devices.
Very cool. Very cool. Is there any commitments or minimums that they have to jump on your plans?
No, it's month to month. We do offer annual pricing for convenience, but no, if somebody wants to just try us out for a month and then move off, then yeah, we don't try to do any type of lock-in or customers. We do unfortunately have customers that come to us and they are not given super admin access or things like that to their controllers, and it makes it very difficult for them to move. We don't. If somebody wants to be our customer, we're more than happy to work with them. If they want to leave us for whatever reason, we're not going to impede them in any way.
Very cool.
In regards to coming on board, how does the process work for migrating essentially from, let's say you have a hosted, you're self-hosting, now I'm going to migrate to you. Is that a involved process? Do you guys, just take it all over? What's the involvement, I guess, on both sides to get things set up and ready?
Yeah, we have a lot of documentation and we'll answer any questions. Usually if they're moving an entire controller, it's a pretty simple method. If they're using a custom domain name, it's really as simple as backup, restore, and then just using a DNS CNAME record, you'd point to our hosted controller name.
Okay.
And by doing the restore, then the device and the controller would have those that be able to do the key exchange and be able to talk and know that when you do that changeover, it's just communicating with the same name it knows. It already has that name in the inform URL, and the controller restore would handle that security aspect between the communication between the device and the controller.
Okay. So I do have one more question. This might be a little technical, so if it is, then we can, But one of the things I know too is there are some people that are not up to date on their controllers. So let's say you're, I don't know, two updates behind. I guess we're on 7 now, so somewhere in the 6s. And they came to you. So their controller now is this. I'm just going to use a number. They're 6 and we're at version 7. Do you guys go ahead and do that update? They come in at 6, or they have to go to 7 first, then come to you? How does that work?
Generally, in most cases, as long as they are not using more recent software than us, there's no problem with doing a backup and restore or a site export import. There are a few edge cases depending on the version, but in most cases that works really well. If the software is really old, like several years old, we can always do a bit of a step down on the hosted controller for them. They do backup and restore, and then we can step up the upgrades to get them to a more modern version. That's pretty rare cases that we do that. We did have a customer using, I think, version 4 semi-recently, so it's really old. Yeah, we just had to do some step-up upgrades for them, and we got them onto a more recent version. So not a straightforward answer, but in most cases, as long as you're using a previous version to what is the stable version that we're hosting, you should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, I just asked the question because I do talk to someone who refuses to upgrade because it works and they just want to leave it. So, so there are those cases out there where that happens. And so that's where the question came from.
Yeah. And especially, it's worrisome if they're using older versions right now with the log4j vulnerability. Right. We do have a number of people that have unfortunately come to us and their controller's been compromised through that vulnerability, and it makes it a little bit tricky. But as long as they have a backup copy, then we can definitely help them out. Yeah, it's the older versions after that vulnerability. The older versions can bite people.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Well, Dave, I really appreciate you coming out today. There's a lot of great information. Hopefully the audience found value in being able to understand more about Cloud Unifi. But is there anything that you'd like to leave us off with that we may not have covered about what you offer or over at Cloud Unifi?
No, we just try to provide as a service that just helps people if they don't want to spend their own time. We want to provide a reliable, trustworthy service to host the Unifi controller.
Very cool. Now, if anyone who wants to enroll as a partner or maybe want to reach out to you with questions, what's the best way for them to connect and reach out?
We got a website chat. It's probably the easiest method, just right on our website, cloudunifi.com. And happy to answer any questions people have.
Perfect. So we'll make sure that we have that link in the show notes. Again, really appreciate you coming out here today. Rick, any lasting words for our fellow listeners?
Well, my spiel. Dave, first of all, thanks for coming, and I appreciate your time today. And I do believe that what you offer is of value to the community. So I hope anyone out there, a lot of us who are self-hosting, if you're tired of it or it's time to move on, or you realize it's time to go, reach out to Dave. Hopefully he can answer your questions for you and put us all at ease for that. Again, thanks for coming. Again, my last part of this is the same. It's my my request that my bat signal out to everyone in regards to I come up with a new one every week. So this is the bat signal out to everyone looking, in regards to the show itself, MSP Unplugged, both Tech Talk Tuesday and here our Resource Thursday. We always are looking for great guests. So if you know anyone or you have any suggestions, please reach out to us. We'll do the best we can to see if we can get that person on. And any ideas, any suggestions on how we can make the platform better for you all, please reach out and let us know. That's Rick at MSP Unplugged or info at MSP Unplugged. And the last thing, of course, as I said in the beginning, I'm getting very excited. We're getting closer and closer to September. Things are starting to form, and it's you have an idea at one point, and then it starts to form, and you can see it, and it gets really, really exciting. So we are still, and I told you before, we're going to take this until the day before we start, taking suggestions from anyone and request any comments. So reach out to us. And other than that, again, thanks, Dave, for coming, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yep.
Paco?
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Exciting and terrifying, all at the same, for sure. No, but we got some good stuff planned up here, so hopefully we'll live up to the hype with the new version that we're coming out here, coming out in September. But anyway, appreciate everyone listening today. Tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. You can also head over to our Facebook page, facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit the notification button so that you can be notified whenever a new episode is available. You can also take us with you wherever you go on your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Once again, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.